For joining us on What Now. Today we are beginning on a sad note with the news by Iranian state media, which says at least 28 pilgrims from Pakistan have been killed and 23 others injured after their bus overturned in an accident in central Iran. The accident took place in the province of Yazdi with 53 passengers on board. The pilgrims were on a pilgrimage to the holy city of Kamala in Iraq, according to a preliminary investigation by traffic police in Yazdi. A technical defect in the vehicle's braking system caused the accident. Millions of Shia Muslims are currently taking part at the Arabian pilgrimage, and they typically drive through Iran to reach their destination. And still on accidents in Italy, rescue operations are continuing to find the 6 missing passengers of the Bayesian luxury sailboat that sank near Palermo in Italy on Monday. Last night, firefighter divers were able to unhinge a 3-meter wide windowless, which they used as an entry point. They were able to access the sailboat's common area, but not the cabins, the Italian Fire and Rescue Service said. The rescuers said this could require some time because the sailboat is lying on the starboard side. That's a position which makes rescue operations more difficult when entrances are blocked. And let's now turn our attention to the United States, where the Democratic Convention entered its second day, with former President Barack Obama and his wife, Michelle Obama, held a large crowd of party members spellbound with resounding speeches on the need for consolidated support to help Vice President Kamala Harris win the presidential seat in November. Let's bring you more details in our next report.
The U.S. Democratic Party nominee Kamala Harris has been given resounding endorsements by the former President of the United States, Barack Obama, and his wife, Michelle, at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. They appealed to party supporters across the U.S. to turn out and vote to defeat former President Donald Trump in November. Mr. Obama told the people not to give their votes to Donald Trump, whose presidency, he said, was characterized by bluster and chaos.
America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is ready for the job. This is a person who has spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a voice and a champion. As an attorney general of the most populous state in the country, she fought big banks and for-profit colleges, securing billions of dollars for the people they had scammed. Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our future together? One thing is for certain, Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala.
In her speech, Michelle Obama told the crowd that with Kamala Harris in the race, hope is making a comeback. The former U.S. First Lady also emphasized that Democrats must vote overwhelmingly to erase any doubt of their victory and render useless any effort to suppress the party.
The steel of her spine, the steadiness of her upbringing, the honesty of her example, and yes, the joy of her laughter and her light. It couldn't be more obvious. Of the two major candidates in this race, only Kamala Harris truly understands the unseen labor and unwavering commitment that has always made America great. Now, unfortunately, we know what comes next. We know folks are going to do everything they can to distort her truth. My husband and I sadly know a little something about this. For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hard-working, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black.
Other Democratic Party popular members praised Ms. Kamala Harris and lashed out Donald Trump repeatedly, emphasizing his presidency was characterized by chaos. Mr. Obama laid emphasis on America's preparedness for a new chapter, adding that Ms. Kamala Harris is ready for the job. The couple also warned that amid the enthusiasm for Ms. Harris's campaign, Democrats should not lose sight of being in an extremely tight race, noting that the election would be decided in a handful of key swing states.
For more on U.S. politics, the Democratic National Convention, I am now being joined by media analyst and CEO and Case Consulting, Ike Ogbebule. He joins me from the United States via Skype. Good to have you join us.
Good day, Precious, and thanks for having me.
So I know you have been following day one and day two done and dusted. What have been your key takeaways from the 2 days so far?
Well, I guess day one was super exciting. I think it was the handing over of the torch from President Joe Biden over to Vice President Kamala Harris. That day one was very emotional for most of us. We were watching with excitement, and the fact that the energy in that room was something else. But day two was a different beast altogether when the Obamas came out and kind of reminded America the importance of why this election has to be fought and fought with an intention to win. The Obamas made it very clear that we are ready for the next chapter. And we're super, super excited of what's going on in the Democratic Party. Because before we were concerned that we had two old candidates and no one knew where the country was actually going. But now we have a lot of vibrant people who have come out from several different blocks. Precious, it's a new day, and I'm happy.
And you know, there are lots of people who feel like you, especially within the Democratic Party. But let's talk about the speech by former President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle. What impact do you think their message will have on undecided voters? And that message of hope, will it resonate with Americans?
It does. You remember that Barack Obama is the most popular living president as we speak. And he carried along for 8 years, not just people in his party, but independents throughout that whole process. And he has become more popular after leaving office. Both him and his wife are almost like political rock stars. And so when they speak to people, they cut across all races, they cut across all ages, they cut across all kind of demographics you can actually think of. And that's the most important thing. So when Barack Obama speaks about hope, you can see hope. Something that we haven't seen in a long time in this part of the world. Precious, his message was clear, it was precise, and he kept on reminding folks that this hope will only come if we put our faith to work.
And I must just add to the conversation, look, talk about a power couple. The first people who come to your mind is the former president and his wife. Great speakers. But I also want to mention Bernie Sanders, who is beloved by progressives. The idea of also having him on, talk about the implication and the impact that that would have, because he had tried to become president a couple of times, and his message does resonate with some people, but not with the core of the Democratic Party. Talk to us about the fact that, look, he's now praising Harris, the implication and the impact that that will have.
Well, the impact of that is that Bernie Sanders, which is, I will say, he's almost the leader of the progressive movement in the United States of America. He's an independent. He was Democratic before, but he now runs as an independent senator. which allows him to speak freely to any party and to any power that may be. Now, someone like that coming out to actually telling you clearly that he will do everything in his power to ensure that Donald Trump does not become president and Kamala Harris becomes the president in the next 11 weeks or so, it's a big deal, because the progressives, who are both Republicans, independents, and Democratic Party members, will always believe in what Bernie Sanders says. He's one of those politicians that speaks to the layman, that speaks to the ordinary folks on the streets, right? And so people see him like that. Bernie is about 82 years old or something like that, and he's still actively involved in politics, sharp as a razor. So when he stepped on that stage yesterday and spoke, America listened, and that makes a big difference. And we're seeing Republicans who are Republican Party members who spoke at the DNC convention. That's a lot. You don't normally see that. It's a movement taking place. Voting blocks that would normally not vote. We see young people coming out. Africans in the diaspora. There's a group called the Africans in the Diaspora. There's a Bind Pack. These are all Africans who would normally be relaxed and chilling and not getting involved. They are fully involved in creating a momentum to get people out to vote. And this is across the country. Precious, it's a new day, like Barack Obama just said. America's ready for a new chapter.
But the race is not just about getting Kamala elected as president. I mean, it also has to do with the House of Representatives and the Senate. And I know that, the Senate Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, spoke to that when he talked about, Kamala Harris not being able to do it alone. And he called on voters to elect another Democratic majority to the U.S. Senate. And I'm sure that the House of Reps will also be looking, to getting that done as well, having a majority for Democrats. But can Kamala Harris build a coalition that doesn't just get her elected, but also gives her the majority both in the House of Reps, or at least retain the Senate?
Well, the anticipation is that if she does win, we hope that this will be the end of Donald Trump's era. And so the Republican Party can now get back into doing business the right way. Americans can now come to a place where there's no more the reduced amount of chaos in politics, right? The amount of fear, where there's a lot of diversity. People are just completely separated from each other in reality. So we're hoping that if this happens, the Republican Party in the Congress will wake up and realize that, it's time for us to serve the American people who put us in there. That's number one. We also believe that when we go in to vote in November, that people will also vote to ensure that the Senate remains tight and also Congress remains tight, leaning towards the Democratic Party, because we saw what happened to Barack Obama. He came in, initially he had it, and then at the second term he lost the power of both houses, and he couldn't do much. If that happens to Kamala, she's toast. So we can't afford to see that happen again, and we have to ensure that America has to go back to work, have leaders who want to lead, to enhance the lifestyle and the level of living in America for the people. This is a democracy. And
interesting you mentioned Barack Obama, the opportunity that he missed to elect a Supreme Court judge, or nominate rather, a Supreme Court judge, is the benefit that Donald Trump got, and he nominated 2 Supreme Court judges. And Democrats, are facing the brunt of that. But I also wanted to talk about how, whilst the nominations, rather the convention was ongoing, Kamala Harris was in battleground Wisconsin trying to raise, she faced, I think, an estimated 15,000 people, and she's there trying to raise money. Talk about, that, I mean, for the Republicans, we know that Trump was there all through, but she seems to have, saying, look, she's not going to be there all through. She has to keep moving. Speak to the urgency, of this for her, because she has really limited time to work with.
That is correct. That's the word. Limited time to work with. The time is so short, 78 days or something like that. So she can't afford to sit down in Chicago watching people on telly, right? She knows that the work has to be done on the battleground states. And that's where her and Tim Walz, her vice presidential candidate, found themselves yesterday, right? In all the excitement going on in Chicago, she came to realize that, it's more important for me to speak to the people that I need to get out to vote. And that shows you the quality of a great leader. somebody who understands her priority, somebody who understands the importance of what is most important, to leave the convention and go out there and speak to the people. And she did a great job yesterday in Wisconsin. So you can see that happen. That tells a lot, because the election is going to be won by a very slim margin and a very few states.
You sound very optimistic, but we'll see how things play out. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we will speak to you over and over again before the election, and maybe during and after the election as well. Thank you. A media analyst and CEO and Case Consulting, Ike Ogbebile.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you're watching The World Now. We'll take a break and return with more stories from across the world. Stay with us. The war between Israeli forces and Hamas is yet to ease the tension in Gaza. The U.S. peace negotiation is yet to fetch an acceptable deal by Hamas, which says Israel is maintaining a hard stance. We have an update.
The Israeli army has reportedly ordered new evacuations from areas of central Gaza's Deir el-Balah near Khan Yunis. This could expand the army's ground operations from south to central Gaza. Gaza's health ministry says at least 50 Palestinians have been killed and 124 wounded in Israeli attacks on Gaza in the last 24 hours. On the flip side, a statement from a group representing the families of Israelis still held in Gaza by Hamas say the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is fully responsible for the delay of a peace deal. They insist his incessant criticism of the negotiation teams blame the mediators, the media, the families of the abductees, amounting to throwing sand in their eyes. Meanwhile, in its latest war update, Israel's military claims it has eliminated dozens of fighters in Rafah and Khan Yunis. In addition, the military says it discovered an extensive weaponry in Gaza, including explosives, grenades and assault rifles, while taking out military infrastructure. It has that in total, its fighter jet hit 30 targets in the Gaza on Tuesday.
To relieve the terrible daily suffering.
The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, says to get closer to a ceasefire agreement, Israel has agreed to the withdrawal of IDF forces from Gaza as laid out in the recent mediation proposal. But Hamas released a statement on Tuesday criticizing both top U.S. diplomat and President Joe Biden of being misleading about its position on a ceasefire agreement.
In the western part of the country. Today, Moscow's mayor accused Kyiv of attempting to launch one of the largest ever drone attacks on the capital. Since the Ukrainian incursion began nearly 2 weeks ago, its forces are inching forward in Kursk and destroying key bridges in an alleged effort to cripple Russia's logistical capabilities and disrupt supply routes. At least 2 bridges were taken out of action over the Sem River in Kursk last week. Ukraine said it had used precision airstrikes for one. Russia claimed Kyiv had utilized Western rockets for the other. The Chinese Prime Minister is scheduled to engage with Russian leaders in Moscow today. Li Qiang will also visit Belarus. China disregards the Western critique of its close relations with the Russian government, which is persisting despite the conflict in Ukraine. Mr. Li will connect with the Russian President Vladimir Putin and engage in discussions about China-Russia collaboration as initiate strategic ties with Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin. The Chinese premier expressed appreciation for the relationship between the two countries upon his arrival at Moscow's airport, where he was welcomed by Russian officials and guard of honor. An investigation has been formally requested into veteran politician and former army chief Prawit Wongsuwon over an allegation of hitting a journalist last week. He reportedly struck the Thai PBS reporter on the head last week after she asked him a question about the new prime minister. The Broadcast Journalists Association and the News Broadcasting Council of Thailand have submitted a letter to the lower house speaker to start investigating whether Mr. Prawit's action violated the Member of Parliament's Code of Ethics. In the Philippines, an ex-mayor accused of spying for China and having ties with criminal syndicates has fled the country, creating public outrage. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. says heads will roll after officials admitted Alice Go had left the country undetected 1 month ago and traveled to Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Mr. Marcos says her departure laid bare the corruption that undermines the justice system and erodes the people's trust. Ms. Go has been out of public view since July, when a Senate panel investigating her alleged links to scam centers and online casinos ordered her arrest for refusing to testify in his inquiry. And back here in Africa, a suspect who police say was being detained over the discovery of dismembered bodies of women in Kenya's capital has escaped from custody. The head of the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, Mohammed Amin, says Collins Halusha escaped along with 12 other inmates of Eritrean nationality who had been arrested for being in the country illegally. Acting Police Inspector General Gilbert Masengeli says preliminary investigations indicate that the escape was aided by insiders. Halusha, 33, was being detained at the police station after a court allowed detectives 7 more days to investigate his alleged crimes before charging him. And finally, on the What Now, look at entertainment. Hollywood stars Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck are divorcing after 2 years of marriage. Ms. Lopez has filed for divorce in a Los Angeles County Superior Court. The pair formally tied the knots in Las Vegas in July 2022 and held a larger wedding ceremony in Georgia the following month. Their romance began after they met while working on the set of the 2003 crime caper Gilly. A court filing in the case says Ms. Lopez or her attorney has to notify Ben Affleck with a copy of her petition to dissolve the marriage. A document filed in LA Superior Court in the case says both must share financial information, including their current income, expenses, property, and debts.